Every story begins with a lie we tell ourselves. Once, there was a grove. A quiet place, hidden between heartbeats. A sanctuary for gentle magic and gentler truths. But even sanctuaries are not blind. The forest watched. It always does. Beneath the roots, something waited. Stone remembers longer than wood, and patience is a language it speaks fluently. The grove did not vanish. It hardened. Roots became walls. Branches learned the shape of battlements. A throne does not demand. It waits. Her name was Pagan. She learned to heal. She learned to listen. And she learned that some stories do not want mercy. Horrormancer is not a name. It is a mantle. A burden carried by those willing to remember what others refuse. These halls are filled with stories. Some are whispered. Some are written. All of them are true to someone. The past is not forgotten. It is carried. But a new era has begun. The forest still listens. But now it answers.
Ah, you made it. Good. For those of you that had wandered here before, welcome back. You're right on time. I am Pagan. Horrormancer is a title. One I earned. One I carry. It names the work. And it names me. Once, I kept a grove. It was quiet. It was kind. And for a time, that was enough. The grove was a sanctuary, a place where people found their footing. It was never meant to be the destination. The forest didn't disappear. It simply stopped pretending that it was only a garden. These holes are where the stories gather now. Letters, confessions, artifacts. They always find their way here eventually. Some laughing, some nervous, all of them convinced that they're the exception. You're not required to stay. That part matters to people. But if you do, you may notice the nights feeling a little less cooperative, longer, heavier. People who return tend to pick things up over time. Patterns, habits. Most of them feel the urge to make it official. I will say this. Living indoors has been educational. I spent a very long time insisting that I preferred open air. Trees, after all, don't interrupt. The sky doesn't enforce curfews. Walls, on the other hand, they have opinions. Still, you adapt. You learn where things echo. What listens. What remembers. And at some point you realise you stopped treating everything like a visit. It's usually how it goes. No announcement. Just the quiet moment where temporary stops being convincing. And if we're honest, and we should be honest, you've already been inside the archive. Oh, sure. Not all at once, and certainly not with a sign over the door. But you were here. I didn't see the need to stop pretending. And stop everything we were doing to explain it. But you've been here. Several times before. At the time, it just felt provisional. Temporary things don't usually get maps. So I let it be vague. I let it sprawl. Which, as it turns out, worked beautifully. Right up until it didn't. The stories pile up. People linger. And one day you realise you're not just dropping by anymore. You're arranging the furniture. The archive didn't suddenly appear. I simply stopped pretending we were somewhere else. And now that I've laid it all out loud, it would be a little silly to keep pretending that you're still standing on the porch. I don't expect you to know the layout. No one ever does the first night. But it does help to know where you are. And perhaps more importantly, where you're not. Some rooms are for listening. Some are for speaking. And some exist purely so certain things don't wander into the wrong conversations. We won't be visiting them all tonight. That would be ambitious, to say the least. And frankly, a little bit rude. But since you've already been inside, you may as well know what to be prepared for. So we should get you properly introduced. I think a tour is in order. All right. Oh, wait. Hold on. That can actually wait a moment. It's funny, actually. Standing in a place like this always brings odd questions to mind. Little ones. The sort that don't ask permission. For instance, I've just found myself wondering. We'll come back to the rest. But all right. Here's my question. What feels polite, even when no one asked for it? No rush. It's just something I found myself wondering. A cup of tea feels polite. Silent companionship. Ah, yes. Being honest, of course. Chivalry. I wondered when that would come up. It's funny what people agree on without agreeing. Honesty, for sure. You notice that too. Kindness to others. A good book. Yes, that is a good one, isn't it? Generosity. Yes. Thanks for the help you gave. Empathy, being in one's presence. Ah, yes. Absolutely. Well, for me, it's putting things back where I found them. Even if no one would know. Anyway, let's get to this tour, shall we? This is the scriptorium. It's usually where people realise they're not just here to look around. You can tell because the room goes quiet before I do. I don't bring just anything in here. This is where stories that refuse to behave end up. The ones that don't shorten well. The ones that get offended if you interrupt them. Some arrive half-formed. Some arrive damaged. Some arrive convinced that they're the last thing you'll ever read. They're rarely correct about that. Some of them are obvious about what they want. Some of them are very polite. Right up until they aren't. Those are my favourite. I'm aware that most of you are here for the sound of my voice. That's perfectly fine. It's a perfectly reasonable place to start. People tell themselves they're just listening. Something soothing. Something to fall asleep to. They're rarely still awake by accident. And that part matters. So this is where we will come from now on, when there's a long-form story to present to you. Impolite tales? Yes. Some of them do tend to be impolite. But that's all right. It is very soothing and relaxing, yes. Which is why it's designed to be a quiet place. When we're here in the scriptorium, you're allowed to drift, to relax. Your entire focus and attention doesn't need to be what's happening on screen. And that's okay. Shall we move on then? There is a lot more to see, isn't there? The receiving room. This one never disappoints. It's where people bring things very carefully. Usually after thinking about it far too long. Usually while insisting they haven't been thinking about it at all. You've been here before too. Hovering, second-guessing yourself in the doorway. It's fascinating how consistent that is. Is this allowed? Is this enough? Should I explain what I meant? I've answered those questions. Repeatedly. People still ask them anyway. Which is why I enjoy this room so much. It's not precious. It's not dangerous. It's just where humans reveal themselves. By trying very hard not to. Things come in here before they become important. Before they're judged. Before anyone decides what they're supposed to be. And watching that moment? Well, it never does get old. People tend to overthink what belongs here, and, well, they really shouldn't. Not now, Mr. Ashburn. Thank you. We'll deal with letters another night. Tonight is for introductions. For those of you wondering, that was Mr. Ashburn. He's been very helpful with the organisation. And everything else. Well, once something makes it this far, it usually wants to be read. And yes, that part should feel familiar. I still read the letters. I still comment when I feel like it. But what I'm no longer doing is pretending that we're all figuring this out together. There was a rule set. I'm sure some of you remember it. Very earnest, very survival-oriented. Adjusted every time reality had opinions. It was charming, really. But that phase has concluded. The rules that I'll be referencing from here on out are the finished version. Same flavour, same intent. Just no longer negotiable. Honestly, that's when it gets interesting. Letters behave very differently once they realise I'm not asking questions anymore. Some of you are going to enjoy what that does to them. I can already tell. So yes, if you're wondering, you can still send me your letters. And I'll still read them. It just might feel a little different from here on out. Any questions before we move on with our tour? Keep it comfy. Yes, always keep it comfy. Comfortable is less of a suggestion and more an absolute requirement. Well then, since you have no questions, or as Stargazer appears, we might be too trepidatious to put them to voice right now. We'll just continue on. This is the advertisement parlour. Now I know, no one likes advertisements. They interrupt things. They ask for attention at inconvenient moments. They remind you that stories, tragically, do not feed themselves. Unfortunate, but true. I've never understood the instinct to pretend otherwise. An advertisement, after all, is still a story. Just a very honest one. It tells you what it wants. It tells you why it's here. And it does so without the courtesy of pretending to be subtle. Frankly, I respect that. So rather than shove them into corners, or apologise for their existence. I gave them a room. Things don't arrive here by appointment. They surface. Ah, all right. Let's see then. Are we realigned again? That is the question. I did say that advertisements like to cause interruptions, didn't I? Who knew? I tend to be somewhat prophetic. Interesting, isn't it? Well then. It wouldn't be a proper live stream if we did not suffer from technical issues. Now would it? Glad to see the dark elves aren't gone. Ah, yes. They're never truly gone. They just insist on finding new ways to mess with me. You know, you notice when something is absolutely convinced that it deserves attention, when it believes that it's essential, unnecessary, unavoidable, it does find its way here. I don't approve of them. I certainly don't debate them. Just like the advertisements. I just simply let them present themselves, exactly as they wish to be seen. Anyway, these advertisements, you'll encounter them from time to time. Brief appearances, complete thoughts. Consider them interruptions that made the first move. Since, after all, as you've seen, they usually do. We won't linger in this room any longer. It encourages the enthusiasm. But still, it would be rude of us to pretend that the parlour doesn't exist. Well, I don't know about you, but after that, I could use some fresh air. Ah, yes. That's much better, isn't it? Here's where the air still gets to breathe. And so do I. Welcome to the courtyard. It's open, green, stubbornly unconcerned with walls. Kind of like me. I thought it would be strange if the archive didn't leave itself at least one place to spill out a little bit. This is where things grow sideways, where conversations can wander, where I'm allowed to be a little less constrained. And if this feels familiar, good. It should. This is the closest that the castle ever gets to pretending that it doesn't exist. I can behave a bit more like myself out here. Or at least the version of me that you're used to catching. One when no one's keeping notes. This is where stories get a little looser. Not everything needs shelves. Some things do better with firelight and an audience that isn't keeping score. Out here, the stories don't arrive fully dressed. They're passed along, warmed up, changed slightly by whoever's holding them. This is where I occasionally decide to play the bard. Not because I have to, but because I feel like it. Some nights the mood strikes, the air behaves, and a story that wasn't written down yet decides that it would like to be heard anyway. That's how these tend to work. No preamble, no filing system. Just a voice, a moment, and the understanding that if you blink, you might miss the good part. The fire is lovely. It is, isn't it? Campfire tales, yes. Who would I be if I didn't allow myself the opportunity to occasionally play the bard? Perhaps you might no longer get the best stick figures you've ever seen, but I am nothing if not a druid. And I do have that pesky little bug in the back of my ear about oral tradition and the desire to pass things along. Well then, have we seen enough of the courtyard? Are we ready to move on? Green like the emerald dragons of ancient forests, yes. Yes, exactly. See? You understand the vibe already. Though I would expect nothing less from you. S'mores? No. I'm afraid not. But you're welcome to bring your own. All right, then. Time to press on. There's still more to do, after all. Ah, yes. Down we go. From the open air above to the stone below. To places that assume you've signed the paperwork. This is the vault. It sits beneath the castle, where things require classification. They tend to feel more at ease. Nothing down here is called a story. Everything is a record, an entry, a file that insists it's complete. They come with labels, with diagrams, with very specific language about what is expected and what is unlikely. Someone at some point believed that was sufficient. You'll notice the tone if you listen closely. Reassuring, methodical, carefully instructional. The sort of voice that assumes nothing unusual will occur during the explanation. You can feel it after a while. The subtle tightening. The sense that everything is being held exactly where it's supposed to be. Too exactly. I try not to linger down here. Things start stacking up if you do. Thoughts, assumptions, certainties that would prefer not to be examined all at once. But for now, it's best to keep things moving. But all right, let's pause here for just a moment. Some of you are already leaning forward. Some of you are trying not to. That usually means that something has caught your attention before you are ready to admit it. Good. This is alive, after all. So tell me, up until now, which room sounds the most tempting? Not the safest, not the one you should be curious about. The one that you'd open first, if no one was watching. Go on. I'm listening. Me, I was leaning forward. I knew it. I could tell. The courtyard by the firelight. More for the courtyard. Probably the receiving room. Interesting. I haven't seen much, but the crystal ballroom. Ah, the advertisement parlour. Yes. Yes. The vault. There are, of course, no wrong answers to be had here. This is simply me checking in with you, seeing what strikes your fancy, what seems the most interesting to you for now. You're split between the courtyard and the receiving room. We have one for the scriptorium. The kitchen? Can I say kitchen? Ah, Big Mac cakes, but which kitchen? There are, of course, a minimum of 5 kitchens in the castle at any given time, although that number tends to be somewhat flexible. You like the windows in the advertisement parlour? The courtyard would be your pick. It's got that feel to it. It does, doesn't it? It feels very much like home. Very much like what we're all used to. It does feel very Old Grove. And that's not a mistake. But it's also not where we're going to linger forever. That would be most unwise. Well, now that we've gotten a little bit of a feedback from you, just some time to make sure you know I am listening to you. I am reading what you have to say. But there is a plan for this evening, and if we don't press on, we might run into some trouble. So then, let's continue forward. Welcome to the abatement room. This is where the gaming happens. Not readings, not recordings, not something safely observed from the outside. This is where the story moves. Because you touched it. Controllers in hand, decisions made too quickly, and consequences that don't wait for permission. You already know how games work. And that's the trick. You think you're playing. But we'll just leave it at that. All right. This is as far as I escort you for now. Not because there's nowhere else to go, but because past this point, escort implies something I'm no longer offering. Up until now, I've been doing the polite thing. Showing you around, letting you get your bearings. Making sure you know what kind of place this is. That courtesy has served its purpose. What comes next doesn't need all that instruction. Every room that you've walked through tonight will continue on exactly as it always has, with or without witnesses, with or without commentary, with or without you. But this one this one is different. This space doesn't activate on its own. It waits. Not for obedience, not for permission, for attention. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to do something small. So small that most people overthink it. You don't have to do it. Nothing happens if you don't. Nothing bad, nothing dramatic. It's simply a way of saying, I'm still here. I know where I am. I didn't stay by accident. And once that's settled, we can stop orientating and actually begin. Well then, tonight is the first time this space is going to be prepared this way. So I'll explain it once. Because before anything else can happen here, the space that we're inhabiting is prepared through a candle call. It's not a greeting. It's not a roll call. It's not a request for attention. It is simply how presence is acknowledged. Some of you are here to observe, to watch without shaping what follows, to remain untouched and leave unchanged. That is a valid way to be present here. Some of you will participate. You will engage, decide, or act. You may influence what happens next. And that is also a valid way to be present. And some of you are here as witnesses to remember what happens, to carry it forward beyond this room. And that is also a valid way to be present here. Now, in a moment, I will name each role. If you recognise it in yourself, you may respond in the chat with a single candle. You don't need to justify it. You don't need to explain it. You don't need permission. It doesn't lock you in forever. You are meant to simply answer how you feel at this exact moment. And when you have had time to answer, the candle will be lit. And once all are lit, we can begin. Are you ready? Yes, Jordan, just like that. And you as well, Top Ace. Well done. All right. Let's begin. The first candle is for the observers. Those who watch. Those who listen. Those who remain. This is your call. The second candle is for the participants. Those who step forward. Those who engage. Those who act. This is your call. The third candle is for the witnesses. Those who remember. Those who carry what happens here. This is your call. And the final candle, I light myself. It is for those who would still be here, if they could be. This explanation will not be repeated. In the future, the candles will simply be lit. The space is prepared, and we can now move forward. Well now, look at you. Still awake, still curious. That's good. We're going to need that. Hope I didn't do it wrong. You did not. You did very well. You all did. It's quite nice, isn't it? A little ritual before we start the actual evening. Well, we should continue now, shouldn't we? Because tonight's story is a little different. Not because it's scarier, not because it's louder, but because it's alive in a way most stories aren't. You see, this one doesn't unfold to you. It waits for you to touch it. Every turn, every hesitation, every, well, obviously, I'd never do that. And that's where you come in. Tonight, I'll be telling you a story that doesn't know how it ends. Not really. Because the path it takes is decided collectively by the choices you make as we go. And yes, you do get options. Several of them. All reasonable, all defensible, all deeply capable of ruining someone's night. It's very democratic, very civil, very unsafe. Now, before we begin, I need to say something plainly. I know you like the voice, the pacing, the way everything slows down enough to feel comfortable. Tonight is not the night for that. This is not a bedtime story. This is a sit-up straight story. A don't wander off to make tea story. A maybe don't close your eyes during the quiet part story. Because if you do, if you drift, if you miss a choice, the story will continue anyway. And it will remember that you weren't paying attention. So stay with me. Stay sharp. Argue and chat. Lobby shamelessly for the option you want. Feel very smug when you're right. And feel very quiet when you're not. Think of this less as listening to a story, and more like standing around a table while someone opens a box that clearly should not be opened. And everyone insisting in unison, no, go ahead. It'll be fine. So settle in, but not too comfortably. Keep one eye open. Keep your hands ready. The story is about to ask you something. And unlike most things I read aloud, It expects an answer. Are we ready to begin? You are prepared. All right. As ready as someone can be. Oh, I do love the trepidation. Everything will be all right. You're perfectly safe. For now. Well then. Some records announce themselves. They arrive with urgency, with aftermath, with language that has already decided what matters. This is not one of those records. This entry opens earlier than expected. Before conclusions are drawn, before patterns were agreed upon, before anyone was certain whether attention was required. The following documents a sequence of events that appeared ordinary while they were occurring. That does not mean that they were inconsequential. As this archive opens the file, you will be presented with moments that offer no clear instruction. You may be asked to decide how much weight to assign them. You may find yourself wondering whether intervention was necessary, or whether patience is the wiser course. That determination has yet to be made. But before access can be granted, the archive requires a classification. Not a measure of character, but to establish how proximity will be recorded. Classification precedes interpretation. So then, please select the capacity in which you would like to proceed. You can observe. You will be granted access as one who notices sequence, repetition, and omission. You will not be prompted to act. Your attention will be considered sufficient. You can participate. You will be granted access as one who responds to what is presented. You may attempt adjustment where appropriate. Your actions will be recorded. Or you may witness. You will be granted access as one who retains what others may overlook. You will be shown events in full. Memory will be assumed. There is no incorrect selection. The archive will account for whichever you choose. In a moment, moderators will present you with a poll. Whilst you're waiting, feel free to lobby shamelessly. After all, once the choice is made, you can't go back. Good day, Maru. It's lovely to see you. I would like to remind the moderators that the poll commands are currently disabled and they need to generate the poll manually. Stargazer is lobbying for participation. I reckon I'm observe as I'm a tad bit occupied this time around. That is understandable, but we're not talking about how you intend to act. This decision is going to require more careful thought than that. It is not asking you how you choose to participate with me tonight. It is asking you how you choose to experience the story. You can enter the story in one of these 3 roles, and each one is going to have a different outcome, different options, different things that you can do. Now, I would like to note that it appears moderators are having a slight issue in getting this poll to function. So whilst they set about working on that for the next poll that we will encounter, we're going to do this one just a little bit looser. For those of you that wish to select Observe, please type the letter O in the chat now. For those of you that wish to vote for the Participate option, please type the letter P in the chat now. And for those of you that wish to approach as a witness, please enter W in the chat now. This is a reminder that I am not asking how you, the person watching this stream, wishes to operate, but it is what role the character in the story is going to fulfill. All right. So in our informal poll between both Twitch and YouTube, it appears to me at first glance that the participant role has the most votes. So this is how we are going to proceed. Our context has been recorded. We are going to participate. The sound cuts through what you were doing before you finish realizing it wasn't supposed to. It's sharp enough to interrupt your hands, your posture, the small half-conscious rhythm you had settled into. You feel the moment of disruption first. Muscle tension, a slight lift in your shoulders, before the mind catches up and assigns a name to it. Fire alarm. The recognition is immediate. Your body responds before the thought finishes forming. You look up. You listen harder. You wait for the next sound that usually follows. It does not come. There is no rush of footsteps, no raised voices, no secondary alert. The sound continues at a steady pace, evenly spaced, unchanging, mechanical, familiar. You become aware that you're standing, or half standing, without remembering deciding to move. You feel slightly foolish for it. The room around you does not react. No one bolts for the door. No one calls out instructions. A door opens somewhere nearby, then closes again. The movement is unhurried. You hesitate. This hesitate is physical before it is intellectual. You feel it in the way your weight shifts. the way you don't fully commit to either staying put or moving toward an exit. Your body is waiting for confirmation. The alarm continues. You look around, checking faces, posture, movement. You're not searching for leadership exactly. You're looking for escalation. A signal that would tell you how seriously to take what your body is already doing. You do not see one. The air smells the same. The light does not flicker. There's no heat, no smoke, no visible disturbance. The sound exists on its own, disconnected from everything else. This disconnect unsettles you more than urgency would have. You take a step towards the door, then stop. The step is small enough to feel deniable. You could say you were just repositioning. The alarm stops. The silence that follows is abrupt enough to catch you mid-breath. You remain still for a moment, waiting for the next cue. For the announcement that usually explains these things. A test notice, a reassurance, something that would justify the way your body reacted. But nothing arrives. You feel the tension drain out of your shoulders, leaving behind a faint embarrassment. Not because you did anything wrong, but because you were ready to. And it turns out nothing was required. You become acutely aware of the other people in the space, of how little they seem affected. A few glances exchanged. Someone shrugs. A conversation resumes where it left off. You wonder if you overreacted. That thought does not accuse you. It simply exists. You return to what you're doing. But the transition is not smooth. Your hands feel slightly clumsy. Your focus takes longer to settle. The alarm lingers in your body, even though it has ended. You notice this lag. A few minutes pass. You find yourself replaying the sound, not in its tone, but its timing. The way it began cleanly and ended without explanation. The way it demanded attention and then refused to justify it. You feel a faint irritation. Not fear, not concern, irritation. If there had been instructions, you would have followed them. If there had been smoke, you would have moved. If there had been urgency in anyone else's voice, you would have matched it. But there was nothing to respond to. You check your phone, not reflexively, but deliberately. You expect a message, an alert, something that clarifies. There's nothing. You refresh once, then stop yourself. The absence of information is itself a kind of information. If there was something to know, it would likely already be there. You tell this to yourself. You try to let the moment go. Later, long enough that the first alarm feels like it has already been resolved. You hear it again. Or you think you do. The sound is faint, distant, possibly from another part of the building. Your body reacts faster this time. You stand fully now, turning towards the source. Your heart rate increases just enough to be noticeable. You feel a prickle of readiness along your arms. This time, The sound stops almost immediately. You exhale. You laugh quietly, at yourself, not at the situation. You shake your head once, a small gesture meant to reset your nerves. You tell yourself, this is how systems behave sometimes. That alarms misfire. That tests happen without warning. That buildings are full of mechanisms you do not see. You believe this. You also believe that if it were serious, you would know. That belief settles into you easily, because it matches how everyone else seems to be responding. The building does not feel like it's on edge. It feels normal. Too normal. You return to your seat again. This time, the residual tension fades more quickly. Your body learns from experience. It adjusts its threshold. You do not think of this as training. You think of it as calibration. You remain aware, though. You are not dismissing the alarms entirely. You're simply waiting for one that behaves differently. One that insists on being taken seriously. You do not know yet how long you are waiting, or willing to wait for that difference. For now, the first alarm becomes a reference point. Something you measure future interruptions against. If they behave the same way, you will respond the same way. This seems reasonable. You are aware that you would act if necessary. You feel capable of that action. You're not frozen. You're not complacent. You are simply responding to what is presented. The building remains unchanged. The moment recedes. You continue. The alarm has stopped, but your body has not fully stood down. You're aware of the space around you in a way you were not a few minutes ago. You know where the door is. You know how quickly you could move to it if you needed to. You can feel the difference between sitting and being ready to stand again. Nothing is asking you to act. That does not mean you feel finished. What you do next is not about danger. It's about whether you treat this moment as resolved or provisional. What do you do? Wait and see if it happens again. You stay alert, allowing the situation to clarify itself through repetition. Look for information or instructions. Check for guidance, updates, or confirmation that explains what just happened. Or resume what you were doing. Stand down completely and return to your previous focus. None of these options feel reckless. None of them feel dismissive. Each reflects a different way of trying to do the right thing, with incomplete information. Make your selection. I'll give you just another moment or so to write your decisions in the various chats that you're in. Give you a moment to argue, and then I will take my final poll. Alright. If you would like to wait and see, type 1 in the chat now. If you would like to look for instructions, type 2 in the chat now. And if you would like to resume what you were doing, type 3 in the chat now. Alright. From what I can see between both chat, I definitely think the twos have it. Look for instructions or information. Let's continue. Looking for information feels like the most reasonable thing you can do. The alarm has stopped, but it has not explained itself, and that leaves you with a sense of unfinished business. If this was a test, someone should say so. If it was a malfunction, there should be a notice. If it was real, briefly, imperfectly real, then there should be guidance. You do not want to guess. You check the most obvious place first. Your phone. You had checked once already, but now you look again, more intentionally. You expect an alert, a push notification, an email, something that tells you what just happened and what you are supposed to do now that there has been some time between the event and this moment. But there is nothing. You refresh once, then again. You tell yourself not to refresh a third time, because that way lies anxiety rather than information. You look up. You scan the space for signage you might have missed. Digital displays, notice boards, anything that looks like it exists to communicate during disruptions. Nothing has changed. You feel that familiar flicker of irritation. Not at the lack of information, but at how normal everything looks. The environment has already decided whatever happened is over. It has moved on without you. You stand. This time, you do it deliberately. You take a few steps towards the hallway, toward areas where announcements usually originate. You're not running. You're not drawing attention. You are simply positioning yourself closer to potential sources of authority. You listen. No announcements come. You pass someone you recognize. You consider asking them if they know what happened. The question forms fully in your mind, but you hesitate before voicing it. You do not want to sound alarmist. You do not want to sound foolish. You choose a neutral phrasing instead. Something casual. Something that would not mark you as concerned, even if you are. Before you can ask, they continue on without stopping, already absorbed in something else. You let them go. You check another channel, a building portal, an internal page where updates sometimes appear. You scroll through recent notices, looking for anything that might contextualize what you heard. There is nothing new. The absence of information begins to feel heavier than the alarm itself. A system that announces a problem and then offers no follow-up leaves too much room for interpretation. You do not want to interpret. You want instruction. You move again, farther this time. You position yourself where staff usually pass. You watch for someone who looks like they might know something, someone whose role indicates decision-making. You see no one. The building does not feel understaffed. It feels undisturbed. You feel a slight tightening in your chest. Not fear, exactly, but frustration. You're willing to do what is required. You are ready to act. But there is nothing to act on. You consider whether you should report the alarm yourself. Not as an emergency, but as a check-in. A confirmation that it was noticed. This thought lingers longer than the others. You imagine how the conversation would go. How you would explain that the alarm sounded and then stopped. How the response would make you feel. Relieved, perhaps, but also vaguely embarrassed for having asked. You weigh this against the alternative. Saying nothing, and trusting that the system is functioning as intended. You do not yet decide. You check your phone again. Still nothing. You notice that time is passing, that the urgency you felt immediately after the alarm is beginning to dissipate. Not because the situation has clarified, but because your body is tiring of holding unanswered questions. You do not want that fatigue to make the decision for you. You pause. You take a breath. You look around again, more deliberately this time, as if trying to see the building through a different lens. Does anything look out of place? Does anything suggest ongoing response? It does not. You are aware now that seeking information has yielded nothing. No guidance, no instruction, no confirmation. This absence begins to function as a message of its own. You tell yourself that the alarm had indicated nothing serious. Information would have followed. But it didn't. There is nowhere else to check without escalating unnecessarily. You do not want to escalate without cause. You have tried to find clarity. There is none. You return to where you started. Slower now, your movements less sharp. The readiness that propelled you outward begins to turn inward, settling into a quieter form of attention. You are still aware. You are simply no longer searching. If something happens, you will respond. But for now, there is nothing to respond to. The building continues, as if uninterrupted. You take this as your cue. The alarm does not return. The second alarm hits before the first one has finished leaving your body. Not literally. Time has passed. But the readiness it created never fully dissipated. When the sound starts again, your reaction is immediate and unmistakable. Your heart rate jumps. Your head lifts. Your attention snaps into place. You're already moving before you think about it. This time, you do not wait to see how others react. You look for exits. You orient yourself. You stand fully. No hesitation, no half measures. The building doesn't follow your lead. The people around you pause, yes, but they do not move with urgency. Some glance around. Some sigh. Someone mutters something under their breath that sounds like annoyance rather than concern. You feel once again that familiar flash of irritation. Not at them, at the disconnect. The alarm is the same sound, the same cadence, the same mechanical insistence. But the meaning it carries for you has changed. You remember the first one. You remember how it stopped without explanation. You remember how uneasy that felt. Now it's happening again. You wait for the escalation that feels inevitable. It doesn't come. The alarm stops. The silence afterward is heavier this time, not because it's longer, but because it confirms a pattern that refuses to resolve itself cleanly. You exhale slowly. You sit back down. But the motion is controlled, deliberate. You do not feel foolish this time. You feel justified. The alarm is no longer a one-off. It has repeated. That matters. Later, soon enough, that you have not fully let go of the second alarm. You hear it again. This one is farther away, muffled slightly by difference and distance, but unmistakable. Your reaction is immediate. You stand. You feel the frustration hit now, sharp and specific. This is no longer about being startled or uncertain. This is about a system that keeps demanding readiness and then refusing to explain itself. You look around, searching for someone, anyone who looks like they might know what's going on. But no one does. Or if they do, they're not acting like it. You hear someone joke about it. A short comment, tossed off lightly. You feel something tighten in your chest. Not fear, but anger. The sound is doing too much work to be treated casually. You consider saying something. The words line up in your mind. This keeps happening. You imagine yourself pointing out the pattern, the repetition, the lack of explanation. You hesitate. You do not want to sound dramatic. You do not want to be the only one escalating when no one else seems inclined to. The alarm stops again. This time, the silence feels accusatory. You are aware now that your body is no longer holding tension almost constantly. Your baseline has shifted. You are no longer reacting to alarms. You are anticipating them. This anticipation is exhausting. You notice that others are adapting in the opposite direction. Each alarm seems to require less of them. Their pauses grow shorter. Their reactions smoother. The sound has begun to slide off them without leaving a mark. This divergence bothers you. You do not feel wrong in being alert. You feel increasingly alone in it. An official message arrives later that day. You read it carefully, more carefully than you meant to. It acknowledges the alarms. It uses neutral language. Intermittent activations. Known issue. Being addressed. You feel a mix of relief and irritation. Relief, because the alarms have been noticed. Irritation, because the message does not tell you what to do. No instructions, no guidance, no timeline. Just reassurance. You want more than reassurance. You want clarity. The next alarm comes the following day. By now, your reaction is automatic. You stand. You scan. You prepare to move. You feel your body gearing up for action that may or may not be required. Around you, People barely pause. This time you feel it sharply. The cost of carrying more than the environment seems to warrant. You wait longer for the alarm to stop. It does. You sit, jaw tight, frustration simmering just below the surface. You are tired of being ready for something that never quite arrives. You are tired of recalibrating without feedback. You consider doing something. Reporting the alarms, pushing for more information, insisting that someone take this seriously. You also consider how that would look. You are not in charge. You do not have access to the systems involved. You do not have information beyond what everyone else has. Your effort feels increasingly unanchored. The alarms continue over the next few days. Sometimes once, sometimes twice, sometimes not at all. Each time, your body reacts. Each time, nothing follows. You begin to feel trapped between two bad options: standing down and feeling negligent, or staying alert and feeling foolish. Neither feels acceptable. You notice that the official messages become less frequent. When they do appear, they are shorter, less explanatory, more confident. This confidence does not reassure you. It alienates you. You feel like the system is moving on while you're still holding the question open. You're still trying to do the right thing, but the definition of right keeps slipping out of reach. You start to second guess yourself. Are you overreacting? Are you projecting significance where there is none? Or are you seeing something others have decided not to see? These questions loop without resolution. You are aware now that effort alone does not grant authority. That readiness without instruction can become noise. That trying harder does not necessarily bring clarity. This realization lands heavily. The alarms continue. Each one demands something from you, and then gives nothing back. You are not panicking. You are worn down. You understand now that the pattern itself is doing something to you. It is shaping your response, not through fear, but through attrition. You remain capable of acting. You simply do not know when that action would matter. The building does not answer the question. By now, the alarms are no longer isolated. They have weight. They have history. They have cost you attention, energy, and a growing sense that you are being asked to respond without being told how. You are tired of reacting without direction. You are also unwilling to pretend that nothing is happening. The system has acknowledged the issue, but it has not asked anything of you. Others have adapted by caring less. You have adapted by caring more. This leaves you at a crossroads, not between action and inaction, but between types of effort. How do you respond to the pattern? Treat it seriously anyway. Continue to prepare as if the alarms could escalate at any moment, regardless of reassurance. Assume it's a known issue. Accept the official framing and force yourself to stand down, even if it feels wrong. Match everyone else's reaction. Let your response soften to avoid standing out or burning yourself out alone. None of these choices feel good. None of them feel irresponsible. Each is an attempt to survive the uncertainty. Make your selection. I'll give you a moment to discuss on what you decide you want to do. And then I will ask you for my final poll, so that we can continue. A moderator has informed me that the poll is up. Can we confirm that that's actually working? Is it votable? I cannot see it, hence why I am asking. Yes, it's working. All right. So for those of you in the YouTube chat, the poll is working. Excellent. All right. I cannot see the poll, so you're going to have to feed me the answer when the answer comes in. All right. According to the moderators, the answer to our poll, our selection, is to treat it seriously anyway. And that is exactly what we shall do. Treating the alarm seriously is not something you can do quietly, even when you try. You tell yourself you will remain calm, measured, reasonable. But seriousness has weight, and weight shows. It alters how you stand, how you look at the space, how long your attention lingers on details others have already decided are irrelevant. You do not announce your concern. You simply prepare. You begin to do small things that feel prudent rather than dramatic. You position yourself closer to exits when you can. You keep paths clear without making a point of it. You choose seats with better lines of sight. You memorize routes more carefully than before. None of this interferes with anyone else. None of it feels excessive. It feels like the bare minimum. When the alarm sounds again, you are already upright. Your movement is controlled, not rushed. You listen carefully, not just to the alarm, but to everything around it. Footsteps, voices, the quality of the air. You are ready to move. Others are not. You notice the delay immediately, not because they are slow, but because they are relaxed. Their bodies do not snap to attention the way yours does. They do not orient towards exits. They do not scan for cues. You feel a sharp pulse of frustration, not because they are wrong, but because you are alone in your readiness. The alarm stops. Again. You remain standing for a moment longer than necessary, waiting for something else to happen. Nothing does. You sit, jaw tight, heart still elevated. You tell yourself that readiness unused is not wasted. That is, the cost of being prepared is lower than the cost of being caught off guard. You believe this. You also feel the cost beginning to accumulate. Over the next few alarms, your seriousness hardens into routine. You no longer debate whether to prepare, you simply do. Each alarm triggers the same sequence of events, the same internal checklist. Exit distance, crowd movement, air quality. You begin to notice things others don't. Bottlenecks, doors that swing inward, corridors that narrow unexpectedly. These details would be trivial in normal circumstances. They are not trivial to you. You try, once or twice, to share these observations casually, not as warnings, just comments. That hallway gets tight fast. That exit's farther than it looks. The responses are polite, but dismissive. Someone laughs it off. Someone nods and then moves on. Someone says something like, "Yeah, it's just the alarm again." You feel the isolation settle in. You're not being ignored. You are being outpaced by normalization. An official message arrives, reiterating that the alarms are a known issue, that they are being addressed, that no action is required at this time. You read it carefully, looking for anything that contradicts your posture. It doesn't, but it doesn't support it either. The message feels like a ceiling, a limit placed on how seriously you are allowed to take what you are experiencing. You resent this, not because you think the message is wrong, but because it leaves no room for your effort. You continue to prepare anyway. You stay alert longer than others. You stand when they sit. You pause when they move on. You do not relax back into the space the way everyone else seems to. This vigilance begins to exhaust you. You notice it in small ways first. The way your shoulders ache. The way your sleep is shallower. The way your irritation surfaces faster than it should. You are carrying more than the situation appears to require. You tell yourself, this is temporary. If the alarms resolve, you will stand down. If they escalate, you will be ready. This logic sustains you. The alarms continue. Each one asks you to be ready again. Each one stops without resolution. Each one confirms the pattern that has already cost you time and energy. You begin to wonder whether seriousness is becoming counterproductive. Not because it's wrong, but because it is unsupported. You do not have authority. You do not have confirmation. You do not have reinforcement. You have effort. Effort without leverage. You start to feel conspicuous. Not because anyone says anything, but because you are consistently out of sync. You are the only one standing when the sound begins. The only one scanning the space where others glance at their phones. You're aware of how this looks. You consider dialing back, just a little, just enough to blend. Then another alarm sounds, and your body reacts before you can stop it. You are up again. The frustration sharpens into something else now. Not anger, not fear, but a kind of weary clarity. You realise that treating the alarm seriously has placed you in an untenable position. You cannot escalate without authority. You cannot disengage without guilt. You are stuck between caring too much and being unable to act. You understand now that seriousness alone does not change outcomes. It only changes who pays the cost first. The alarms do not stop. They simply continue. And you continue to prepare. Until the preparation becomes background noise. Until readiness becomes your baseline. Until the strain feels normal. You do not notice when your vigilance stops feeling like a choice. You only notice that you are tired. That you treated the alarms seriously. That you have done what you could. Nothing has been asked of you. Nothing has changed. And no further action is taken. The message arrives when you are not expecting it. Not because it is surprising, but because you have learned not to wait for clarification anymore. The alarms have taught you that explanations come late, if they come at all. So when the communication appears, it feels less like an answer and more like a boundary. You open it immediately. The language is calm, polished, familiar. It acknowledges the alarms, describes them as intermittent, and confirms that the issue has been identified. The phrasing is precise enough to sound competent, without being specific. You notice that it does not apologize. You notice that it does not ask anything of you. No action required at this time. This sentence lands heavily. Not because you disagree with it, but because it closes a door that you have been standing in front of. You have been ready to help, to respond, to adjust your behaviour in some meaningful way. The message does not want that from you. It does not want your vigilance. It does not want your concern. It does not want your initiative. It wants compliance. You read the message again, slower this time, searching for nuance, for conditional language, for any hint that your readiness might still be useful. You find none. The message does not say, remain alert. It does not say, report further occurrences. It does not say, evacuate if conditions change. It assumes that if conditions change, the system will tell you. This assumption is not unreasonable. It is also final. You feel something inside you stand down. Not because you have decided to, but because the message leaves you no role to occupy. There is nothing for you to do with the energy you have been carrying. You let it go. The next time the alarm sounds, you notice how quickly your body checks itself. The impulse to stand rises and stops. The message is still fresh in your mind. No action is required. You obey. This obedience does not feel coerced. It feels expected. You are aware that the system has absorbed responsibility fully now. It has named the issue, claimed ownership of it, and instructed occupants to continue as normal. Your effort is no longer relevant. You feel a brief flicker of resentment at this, not because you wanted control, but because you wanted acknowledgement. You wanted the time you spent being ready to count for something. It does not. The message does not invalidate your effort. It simply renders it unnecessary. You notice how quickly this reframing takes effect. How easily you slip into the posture the message encourages. The alarms become something that happen around you, rather than something you prepare for. You still feel capable of responding. You are simply no longer expected to. You realise that this is the moment where responsibility shifts decisively. Not from individual to collective, but from occupant to institution. The system has said clearly that it will handle this. You accept that. You do not feel relief so much as release. The tension you have been carrying drains away, leaving behind a faint hollowness. You had been braced for action. Now there is nothing to brace against. You continue as instructed. The alarms, when they occur, no longer provoke the same response. You feel your body hesitate before reacting, as if checking with the message first. No action is required. You comply. The building continues to function. No new communication arrives. The message stands alone, unchallenged. You find yourself trusting it, not because it convinces you, but because it leaves you no alternative. To do otherwise would be to act against instruction. You are not inclined to do that. You have tried to do the right thing. The system has now defined what right looks like. You align yourself with it. The effort you once felt has dissipated. In its place is a quieter state, less strained, less vigilant, less demanding. You tell yourself, this is how things are meant to work. You are informed. You are compliant. You are no longer responsible. The matter is closed. The alarms now exist inside an explanation. You have read it. You have adjusted to it. You have felt the shift in where responsibility is supposed to live. The message did not ask for your effort. It did not reject it either. It simply made it unnecessary. Still, the readiness you carried does not vanish instantly. It lingers, waiting to be told what shape to take next. You feel the pull to resolve the tension one way or another. Not by acting, but by deciding how much of yourself remains engaged. So how do you choose to proceed? Do you trust the announcement? Accept that the system will escalate if escalation is required, and let your readiness fully stand down? Do you stay cautious despite reassurance? Continue to prepare quietly, even though you have been told it is not needed? Do you stop thinking about it? Release the issue entirely and redirect your attention elsewhere. Each option represents a different way of surviving uncertainty. None of them are careless. None of them are heroic. Make your selection. All right. I'm going to ask you now to respond in your respective chats. If you would like to trust the announcement, enter a 1 into the chat. If you would like to stay cautious despite reassurance, enter a 2 into the chat. And if you would like to stop thinking about it, enter a 3 into the chat. I'll give you a moment for you guys to respond, and then I shall do my best to see what the predominant answer happens to be. From what I can tell, it looks like the 2s overwhelmingly have it. So we choose to stay cautious. Staying cautious feels like choosing to carry something you have been told to set down. You do not argue with the announcement. You do not reject its authority. You accept that the issue has been acknowledged, categorized, and assigned to the appropriate channels. You simply do not let go of your readiness. This decision is not dramatic. It does not manifest outwardly. You continue to behave as instructed. You do not raise questions. You do not push for clarification. You do not escalate, but you remain prepared. When the alarm sounds again, your body reacts immediately, faster than you can stop it. Your heart rate increases, your muscles tense. You orient towards the exits without standing. You notice this reaction and allow it. You do not act on it, but do not suppress it either. The alarms continue. You listen for secondary cues. You look for changes in the air, the soundscape, the behaviour of others. You do this quietly, without drawing attention. You are careful not to look concerned. You are aware that the announcement has changed the social context. Preparedness is no longer neutral. It is now something that exists slightly out of bounds. You feel the shift keenly. When the alarm stops, you release the tension slowly. You do not feel relief. You feel confirmation that, once again, nothing has required you to act. This does not make your caution feel unnecessary. It makes it feel unspent. You notice that others around you barely register the alarm anymore. Their reactions have softened into habit. Some do not pause at all. Their ease stands in contrast to the alertness you continue to carry. This contrast isolates you. You do not resent them for it. You understand why they have stood down. They have been told they can. They have accepted that permission. You have not. You tell yourself that caution does not require validation, that readiness does not need approval to be worthwhile, that you are undermining the system by staying aware. You are simply maintaining a margin of safety for yourself. This logic sustains you. Over the next few alarms, your posture remains unchanged. Outwardly, you comply. Inwardly, you prepare. You are constantly negotiating the balance between appearing calm and remaining ready. This negotiation takes effort. You notice it in your fatigue, in the way your attention feels split, in the low-level tension that never fully dissipates. You do not feel panicked. You feel held. Held in a state that requires energy, but offers no resolution. You begin to second-guess yourself. Not your instincts, but your endurance. How long can you carry this readiness without acting on it? How long can you remain alert in an environment that has explicitly told you not to be? You do not have an answer. You are aware that now that your caution exists in a narrowing space, the announcement did not forbid it, but it did not make room for it either. You are occupying a margin that may not persist indefinitely. You consider what would happen if something did change, if smoke appeared, if the alarm behaved differently, if someone shouted. You imagine how quickly you would respond. This thought reassures you. You are still capable. That matters. At the same time, you notice that your caution has begun to feel slightly unreal, like a posture maintained in the absence of reinforcement. Each alarm that resolves without consequence chips away at the certainty that your readiness is necessary. You resist this erosion consciously. You remind yourself that readiness is about possibility, not probability. That rare events still occur. That systems fail precisely when people stop expecting them to. You hold on to this belief. You notice that official communications do not resume. The announcement remains the final word. The silence that follows feels deliberate. This silence does not reassure you. It simply confirms that no further guidance is coming. You remain cautious anyway. You do not escalate. You do not disengage. You occupy the space between, quietly prepared, outwardly compliant. This posture feels familiar. It becomes familiar. You do not notice when it stops feeling temporary. You only notice that it has become part of how you move through the building. The alarms continue intermittently. Each one asks the same thing of you. Is this the one? Each time, the answer is no. You feel the weight of those unanswered questions accumulate. You continue to carry them. You are now aware that staying conscious and staying cautious has not changed anything outside of you. It has only changed how long you can endure the waiting. You do not regret the choice. You also do not feel rewarded for it. You remain ready. Nothing calls on that readiness. The building settles back into its routine. The alarm sounds again. Your body reacts before your mind does, out of habit more than urgency. There is a brief lift in your chest, a flicker of readiness that rises automatically and then hesitates. You notice that hesitation. It takes you a moment to decide what the sound means. Not because you don't recognize it, but because you have trained yourself not to assign meaning too quickly. The alarm has asked for restraint so many times now that escalation feels unlikely. You wait for the familiar end. It does not come. The sound continues, unchanged in tone, unchanged in cadence, but its persistence begins to stand out. This is longer than usual. Not dramatically so, but enough to be noticed. You straighten. Around you, others are slower to react. Some pause. Some glance up. No one moves decisively. The collective posture is uncertain but calm, suspended between expectation and habit. You feel the old readiness stir again. You listen harder. You wait for the announcement. none arrives. You feel irritation spike. Not fear, not panic, but frustration. This is exactly the kind of moment you have been trying to be ready for. The kind that refuses to resolve itself neatly. You stand. The motion feels heavier than it should. Not physically, but contextually. You are aware that standing now means something different than it used to. You have stood for alarms before. You have prepared. You have waited. Nothing came of it. You scan the space. At first, everything looks the same. Then you notice the air. It's subtle. Not smoke. Not yet. Something denser. Something that resists your breath just enough to be noticeable. You recognize it immediately. This is different. You open your mouth to say something. You hesitate. The words you want to use. This one's real. Feel inappropriate. Too dramatic. Too late. You are aware suddenly of how many times the alarm has sounded without consequence. You realize that you no longer know how to escalate convincingly. The alarm continues. You hear coughing somewhere behind you. One sound, then another. Not loud, not panicked. You feel your heart rate increase. You move towards an exit. The movement is not urgent yet. Not because you don't feel urgency, but because the space is not moving with you. People are standing now, yes, but slowly, carefully, as if waiting for confirmation that this moment deserves more than caution. You feel a sharp surge of anger. At the system, at the silence, at the time lost to explanation and reassurance. You raise your voice. It comes out wrong. Not loud enough, not commanding, just present. You say something like, "We should probably move." It sounds tentative, even to you. You hate that. The alarm does not change. The air thickens slightly. You feel the moment slip. Not vanish, but pass. The window where decisive action would have felt obvious closes quietly. What remains is a slower, heavier response, burdened by uncertainty. People begin to move. Not all at once, not urgently. They file towards exits in loose clusters, navigating around one another with care. Politeness persists. People apologize when they bump shoulders. You feel the pressure of lost seconds. You move faster now, weaving where you can, adjusting your pace to compensate. You're aware that you are doing what you always said you would, responding when it mattered. You are also aware that this is arriving too late. Smoke becomes visible. Not dramatic, not choking. Enough to confirm what you already know. You feel a flash of grim satisfaction. I was right. The thought dies quickly. Being right does not help. You reach a corridor that narrows more than you remember. You hesitate. Not because you are unsure, but because others are slowing ahead of you. The flow compresses. You look for alternate routes. They are farther than you thought. You realize, suddenly, how much of your preparation was theoretical. You knew the exits. You knew the layouts. But knowing is not the same thing as moving through them with dozens of other people at the same time. The alarm continues. Still the same sound. Still no escalation. You feel something shift inside you. Not panic, but resignation. You have done what you could with the constraints given. You prepared. You waited. You responded. The system did not meet you halfway. You hear shouting now. Real shouting. Urgent. Uncontrolled. It cuts through the alarm in a way nothing else has. The sound does not ask for interpretation. It arrives too late. Movement accelerates, but the space resists it. Bottlenecks form. People hesitate where paths are unclear. Someone stumbles. Someone helps them up. You are aware of how much time this takes. You understand with brutal clarity that the alarm never taught anyone how to move quickly. It taught them how to wait. You feel the weight of that lesson settle. You reach an exit. Or you almost do. The details blur, not because of chaos, but because there are too many small decisions happening at once. Where to step, who to follow, whether to push forward or slow down. You make the best choices you can with what you have. The alarm does not stop. The fire is no longer active. You learn this the same way everyone else does, through phrasing, through the calm certainty of a sentence that arrives already finished, already decided. No longer active. The words close the event behind them. What remains is what happened while it was active. You are told the building is standing. You are told which areas are accessible and which are not. You are told that remediation is underway. The language moves quickly past what can no longer be changed. You listen carefully. Not for emotion, for causation. You want to know where effort mattered. You move through spaces that still feel charged, even after the smoke has been cleared. The smell is gone, but the air feels processed, scrubbed until it is empty. Surfaces are dull with residue that no one comments on. You recognize where you were when the alarm sounded. You recognize how far you got. You recognize how much farther you meant to go. You are shown timelines. They are clean. They make sense. Activation, delay, response, containment. Each interval is reasonable on its own. You see this immediately. No single gap leaps out as indefensible. The minutes are small. The seconds accounted for. You also see how they add up. There is a point marked where conditions became unsurvivable. The phrase is clinical. Environmental thresholds crossed. This point sits comfortably after the alarm began and before the bulk of evacuation. You feel something tighten in your chest. You are shown statements summarizing occupant behavior, movement patterns, clustering, exit usage. You recognize the shape of it, the cautious flow, the politeness, the hesitation where decisiveness should have been. You recognize yourself in these summaries, though your name does not appear. You are not singled out. This is worse. There is a section on human factors. It discusses conditioning, learned response, prior experience with non-critical alarms. The language is neutral, explanatory. It does not condemn. It does not praise. You feel a strange, hollow relief when you realise that no one is being blamed. Not because you want someone else to carry the fault, but because blame would suggest a lever that could have been pulled. There is no lever here. You read about emergency service response times. They are within acceptable parameters. You read about system performance. It functioned as designed. You read about communication protocols. They were followed. You keep waiting for a place where trying shows up. It doesn't. You are told how many occupants were present. You are told how many evacuated successfully. You are told how many did not. The number is small. It feels enormous. You notice that the report does not differentiate between those who reacted immediately and those who did not. It does not categorize based on effort or intent. It categorizes based on location and timing. You feel a sharp, private grief. You tried. You prepared. You responded. None of this appears in the accounting. Photographs are taken. Photographs are shown. They are taken after the event. No flames, no motion, no urgency. The devastation is tidy. The kind that looks manageable when framed correctly. You see areas you never reached. You see exits you aimed for. You see where the space narrowed, where movement slowed. Well, it seems a fitting place, since that was the end of our story. But before you all scatter back into the dark, before the adrenaline finishes draining and you decide this was all perfectly reasonable, I'd like to talk about when we do this again. I understand that there were some technical issues, and I apologise for that. I thank you for your continued indulgence. But stories like this don't vanish when the lights go out. They just wait. Patiently. Marked on a calendar you didn't know you were keeping. The next time the archive opens its doors will be on Thursday, February 12th at 7 p.m. Central. Same time, same place, same voice, different mistake. I would put this somewhere that you'll remember. Or don't. Preparing something else requires your attention, your judgment, your participation, and perhaps your different decisions. So until February 12th, 7 p.m. Central, go on about your evening. Go hydrate. Blink a few times. Convince yourself that you are back in control. Just remember, you weren't watching the story tonight. The story was watching you. So until next time, may harmony find you. And nothing else.